I want you to think about your favorite brand. Now, here's the interesting part. I bet it isn't because of their logo, or their colors, or their website. It's because of how that brand makes you feel. And that's exactly where most businesses get branding completely wrong. They spend weeks choosing fonts, obsessing over color palettes, redesigning their logo, when none of those things actually create a brand. In fact, some of the strongest brands in the world would be still recognizable even if you removed their logo completely. Think about Apple, Nike, Patagonia. You'd still recognize their personality, their values, their voice. That's because branding isn't about graphics, it's about perception. And in today's video, I'm going to show you what actually makes people trust, remember, and buy from a brand, and how you can build that even if you're starting from scratch. Hi, I'm Hayley and welcome back to the Insert Here project. This channel is all about helping entrepreneurs, course creators, and small businesses build digital assets that create both profit and impact. And today we're talking about branding. Not branding in the way that most people talk about it. Not choosing colors, not choosing designs, not fonts, not logos. We're talking about what actually makes people remember you, trust you, and choose you. Because I think branding is one of the most misunderstood concepts in business. And unfortunately, that's causing a lot of talented people to become invisible. Let's fix that. I want to start with something that completely changed the way that I think about branding. A brand is not what you say it is. A brand is what people believe it is. Read that again. It's important. You don't own your brand, your audience does. Your brand lives inside their minds, inside their emotions, and inside their memories. And that's why two businesses can sell almost identical products and get completely different results. One becomes memorable, the other one becomes forgettable. The difference isn't always quality. The difference is perception. Think about people. You know, the ones who walk into a room and instantly create an impression. Not because they're louder, not because they're better looking, but because they have presence. Brands work exactly the same way. The strongest brands create a feeling. Sometimes that feeling is trust, sometimes it's inspiration, sometimes it's innovation, it could be simplicity, it could be even belonging. But there's always a feeling attached. And that's where strong branding begins. Not with visuals, but with emotion. Once you understand that branding is a feeling, the next question becomes, how do brands create those feelings consistently? One of the biggest mistakes I see business owners make is trying to be clever before they're clear. They spend hours creating catchy taglines, unique phrases, creative messaging, but when someone lands on their website, nobody knows what they actually do. And confusion is expensive because confused people don't buy. Strong brands communicate clearly. Think about the strongest businesses you know. You immediately understand who they help, what they do, why it matters. That's not an accident, that's a strategy. Because clarity builds trust. Trust creates action. When people understand you, they remember you. When they remember you, they trust you. When they trust you, they buy from you. Strong brands make understanding easy. Weak brands make people work too hard. I want you to imagine meeting someone new. The first day, they're friendly. The second day, they're cold. The third day, they're energetic. The fourth day, they're a completely different person again. Would you trust them? Probably not. Because consistency creates predictability, and predictability creates trust. Brands are no different. The strongest brands show up consistently, not necessarily perfectly, but consistently. Their message is consistent, their values are consistent, their content is consistent, the customer experience is consistent, and over time people begin to trust them. This is why branding isn't something you create once. It's something you reinforce repeatedly. Every post, every email, every conversation, every interaction. Every touch point is another vote for what your brand stands for or what it doesn't stand for. But clarity and consistency alone are not enough because people just don't buy products, they buy identity. This is where branding becomes powerful. People don't buy gym memberships because they want access to equipment. Oh, I mean, some people do. But they buy the possibility of becoming healthier, more confident, stronger. People don't buy luxury products because they need the product. They buy what the product says about them. People don't buy courses because they want more videos. They buy because they are thinking about who they are going to become after doing it. Strong brands understand this. They understand that every purchase is tied to an identity, an aspiration, a transformation. The strongest brands don't just sell solutions, they also sell possibility. They help people imagine a better future version of themselves. And when you can do that authentically, your brand becomes magnetic because you're no longer selling just a product. You're helping someone move closer to the person that they want to be. Now, let's talk about what I think separates an average brand from an unforgettable brand. Conviction. Strong brands stand for something. They have a viewpoint. They have beliefs. They have opinions. Not controversial opinions for attention, but real beliefs they genuinely care about, because brands without opinions become invisible. If you're trying to appeal to everyone, you usually end up connecting deeply with nobody. The strongest brands have the courage to say, this is what we believe, this is how we do things, this is what matters to us. And in doing so, they attract the right people. Not everyone, the right people. And that's a very important distinction. Let me ask you something. Can you remember every statistic you've ever heard? Probably not. But can you remember stories? More than likely. Humans are wired for stories. We always have been. Stories create emotion. Emotion creates a memory. A memory creates a connection. And connection creates brands. This is why some businesses become unforgettable. Because they tell stories. Stories about their customer. Stories about their struggles. Stories about transformation. Stories about the purpose. The strongest brands don't simply communicate information, they communicate meaning. And stories are one of the most powerful ways to do that. Now, here's what I believe is the real secret. Strong brands aren't trying to look successful. They're trying to be useful. And I think that's a distinction that many people miss because social media can make branding feel performative, like everything is polished, everything is perfect, everything is professional. But the brands people trust the most are often the ones that help them consistently. They show up, they provide value, they solve a problem, they keep a promise. They create a positive experience over and over again. And over time, that becomes reputation. And reputation is branding. Not colors, not logos, not websites, reputation. So what makes a strong brand? It's not a logo, it's not a font, it's not a color palette. I mean, it is a little bit, but it's not the most important thing. Those things support the brand, but they aren't the brand. A strong brand creates a feeling, communicates clearly, shows up consistently, stands for something. They tell meaningful stories and they help people become who they want to be. And over time, they earn trust because branding isn't really about being seen, it's about being remembered. And the businesses that win long term aren't always the loudest. They're the ones people trust enough to come back to again and again. That's what makes a strong brand, and that is something worth building. I'd love to know in the comments, when you think of a strong brand, what's the first business that comes to mind and why? And if you're interested in branding, course creation, social media, business growth, you know where to come. Make sure you subscribe because that's exactly what we talk about here on the Insert Here project. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, people might forget your logo. They might forget your colors. They might even forget your content, but they'll never forget how your brand made them feel. See you in our next video.